Every Sunday, I come to the interwebs, all the social media platforms that I operate on, with what I call the Tarot Snapshot. Now, Tarot is an ancient system. It is a system, though, of symbols, images, ideas. As I sit here, before I've shuffled the cards, I kind of open myself up and go, what should I talk about? And the question that I have, or the question that I'm supposed to give people, is what does it mean to be spiritual to you? Like, what does it mean to be spiritual to you? What does it mean to be spiritual at all? Now, I am a spiritual person. One, because I am a spirit experiencing a human life. I am a human who operates in the world of spirit, translates, interprets what comes to us from the unseen realms. You are a spiritual person. You would not be watching this if you weren't. But what does that mean? Do you have to be holier than thou? Do you have to be the guru who meditates on the top of a mountain for years to achieve spirituality? Or perhaps do you just have to acknowledge that there is an unseen force that runs through our world and runs through us that we all have access to? And as we try to gain a clearer idea of what that is, that's what I believe makes us spiritual. Now, your mileage might vary. Your mileage absolutely might vary. So I'm going to shuffle this deck 5 times and see what cards we get with this 3-card draw. Is playing video games a spiritual act? Maybe. How could that be? Well, hold on. I'm going to use little visual aids as I go ahead and describe this. So I've got the cards that I'm going to read, and then I have cards that I'm not going to read. I want you to imagine that this crystal, this Herkimer diamond that I have here, represents your soul. And then what happens, it becomes embodied when we're born into this world. Then that soul starts to be layered with its upbringing, with its culture, with the best friend in 6th grade that betrayed it, on and on and on. And we end up building up a callus of experiences and influences, programmings and conditions. This becomes what we would call our ego. But this part of us always remains. And if you're interested in what this looks like, go watch some kids, 2, 3, 4 years old. Go watch them play. That's what we all have within us, that loving, playful, sharing part of us that gets corrupted by the world that we're born in. And then, what I believe the spiritual path is figuring out how to deal with our layers, that callus, to get back to the wisdom of this. That takes some deprogramming. That might even take some video games, because if we participate in some video games, well, that might actually bring us back to a childlike place where we're forgetting our layers. So let's not judge other people for what they're doing to be spiritual, and perhaps look at some of the more mundane aspects of our world, maybe even like washing dishes, taking a shower. That could be a very spiritual act, because perhaps that's the thing that helps us get underneath all those layers back to the wisdom of the spirit we're born with. With that being said, the Tarot Snapshot, 3 cards. First card's going to represent us. Second card represents what vexes and perplexes us. Third card represents what heals and reveals. So let's take a look at the card that represents us right now. 7 of Swords. All right. I could not have asked for a better card to represent what I'm talking about here. A lot of times people think of this as duplicitousness, thievery, cheating. I don't ever deal with this card in that way. When I see this card reminds me that it's important that we go our own way. Now, if we're all on a spiritual path seeking the wisdom of the spirit that we are underneath all our layers, sometimes that looks different for some people. I spend time in nature every day. Some people might not. Some people might knit and crochet. we are all unique individuals. Our joys will be as unique as our fingerprints, but so won't our path to spirit be. And I think each of us have to figure out, well, maybe it's not meditation, maybe it's dance, maybe it's not dance, maybe it's meditation. It takes a certain amount of experimentation, but I think that it would be useful for us to lean into that. Now, what vexes and perplexes us, the challenge that we have, grief. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Grief. I see this as part of the layers that we pick up along our way. We're not taught how to grieve well. We're not. When we do grieve well, we bring peace and balance to those that love us in life and in spirit. Yet this is what vexes and perplexes us. So many of us are on our own journeys, and sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. We are on our own journeys, though, which means sometimes we'll feel isolated when we're grieving because we don't have a community. Many of us don't have churches that, there can be good things to communal spiritual groups or homes. We don't have that. So just in the same way that we're left to our own devices of trying to find a spiritual path and what being spiritual means to each of us in that unique way, so are we forced by the very nature of that relationship to grieve primarily by ourselves. We don't collectively get together and grieve the lives that we've lost, grieve the life that we thought we were going to lead but ended up not leading. There's a big part to the collective experience of humanity that I think we're missing out on now because everybody is so individualistic. That's a challenge. Let's take a look at the card that heals and reveals, though. The Lovers. Okay. Yes, this is a card of love. To me, though, this represents the marriage of polarities. We all have feminine and masculine aspects. We all have aggressive, assertive, and passive aspects. And this is the blending of those. Grief is an interesting thing for me because I feel like I'm on my own planet most days, where I exist in a different place than most people, which is great most of the time, not great some of the time, but I think there is that wisdom that we have to carry. For us to love, we're going to have to lose. And whenever we grieve, the only way we're grieving is because we've known love. Now, I am a big believer in the personal myth, walking our own path to spiritual wisdom and insight and connection. We have to do that. We have to walk through our grieving process in our own particular way, yes. But we have to remember the only way that we could ever grieve is because we've loved. And in this impermanent life of ours, because human life is impermanent, it's not forever, that impermanency, the temporary aspect of our life, adds value to the love that we have, just by the very nature of it being temporary. So, with that being said, remember that's why we're here, and no matter what, we are on our path back to this as much as we can, and that's going to look different for everybody. If you're on a spiritual path, don't beat yourself up because you don't feel like you're getting it. You're getting it. You just got to work through a lot of those layers. With that being said, I want to thank you for being here. And if you're watching Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football and that lets you escape from the burdens of everyday life, remember that that might actually be a spiritual practice. And if it doesn't make sense for other people, that's okay. It only needs to make sense for you.